Welcome to I Hate It Here, the podcast for HR and people professionals, making the hardest job in the world just a little bit easier. I'm Hiba Youssef.
I remember my mentor told me years ago, she worked in a CPO role in a very large bank. And she said, my only advice to you in the future is that no matter what job you take, the CEO must respect the role of HR. If the CEO doesn't respect it, nobody in the company or the board will respect HR. And I never forgot that.
Isn't hiring hard enough without guessing who's actually going to work out? The Predictive Index uses behavioral data to help you hire the right people and keep them thriving before things go sideways. Stop winging it and visit try.predictiveindex.com and figure out what actually drives your people.
We are back, your fave podcast in your ears. I'm Hiba, your host and resident hater. Every week, I yap in your ears about something work-related. Each season has a theme, and this season, we're hearing from guests who all want to talk about their first time. First mistakes, first breakthroughs, first time doing the thing that scared them the most, because that's really where all the good stuff is. Joining me today to talk about her first time joining a startup and everything that came with it is Christine Sung. Christine is the founder of the 5 to 9 Society and the former chief people officer at Knix. She's an entrepreneur, builder, and people-first executive with over 20 years of HR and operations experience scaling some of North America's most dynamic venture-backed startups. She spent the last decade plus building high-performance teams, shaping company cultures, and partnering with bold founders to turn early stage ideas into fast scaling, resilient organizations. She's also an advisory board member for a board and Ribbon AI. Christine, welcome to the pod.
Thank you, Heba. I've wanted to be on this podcast for years. I'm finally here.
I've wanted you on for so long too. From our first call, the first time we met each other, I was like, we're going to have a good time together.
So good.
And then when you were like, I want to talk about my first time joining a startup, I'm like, yes, because I have done 4. And I do think that there is a lot to say about joining a startup.
Totally, especially your first.
Oh my God. I wasn't even in HR my first one, but we'll get to that. Before I do, I've been asking everybody, what's something you believed about work in your early career that you've completely unlearned?
In my early career, so I was in corporate for 10 years of my early career, and I truly believed that there were processes and systems and everything was done beautifully, well planned. You plan, years in the future and it all comes true and everything is just wonderful in a strategy deck. And that was my first impression of what life was going to be like working in corporate until I got out of corporate, and then totally blew my mind, like literally blew my mind.
Yeah, I sometimes that stupid phrase I hate, flying the plane while building it, that describes everything. 'Cause I spent my early career as well in like very established corporate structures where everything had a process, where, there was an HR team. And then I went to my first startup that had no HR and I even wasn't in HR. So that's a story for later. But I can't wait to hear about your first startup experience. Like, take me back. Where were you in your career when you joined your first startup, and what made you say yes to joining?
Yeah, I was in corporate and, throughout my corporate years, my managers always told me like, oh, I want to promote you to a manager. And I never wanted it. It was this weird thing where I never wanted to be promoted. And people used to say, why? Why wouldn't you want to be a manager? That's like a promotion. You're going to make more money. You're going to have a team to do all your work. And for some strange reason, I always felt like management means babysitting. So I tried to avoid it for as long as possible. But working in corporate, there was something that was killing my soul every day. Like the pace was too slow, the hierarchy, the red tape, the bureaucracy, the performative junk. I just couldn't handle it. And it just like made me want to vomit every day. It was just so fake. And out of frustration, I applied to a job. I think the job description was like this small, it was a paragraph. And I was like, I don't even know this company. I've never even heard of it, but I don't care. They obviously need help and I'm going to apply. So I blindly applied, didn't think about it. Next day I got a call. Guy asked me to come in for an interview. I said, okay. Went in to meet the guy, thought he was a recruiter. He's like, hi, I'm the founder and CEO. And I was like, you actually do your own interviews, you do recruitment. And that was my first foray into startup. It was a small company. It was probably less than 50 people. And I'd never worked in a company that was that small. I worked at like the largest private company in Canada. It was like at the time, 200,000 employees. I think it's even bigger now, but this was completely different. Like 50 people, you knew everyone's name. They're in a little small office. It was kind of cute. And I thought, I'm gonna take on a more meaningful role. I'm going to work directly with the founder and CEO. I'm going to do all these great things. And originally the job was posted as HR specialist. But when he sent me the offer, he put HR manager. And I said, oh, I think there's a mistake. Like I wanted the specialist role. And he said, no. He goes, you killed it in the interview. You're going to be a manager. And I was like, oh shit, I really don't want to be a manager. But I was like, you know what? Just didn't want it. But then I thought, okay, you know what? I don't even have a team yet. It's manager by title. I'll take it. I will, I'll be as independent as I can before I have to bring on a team. But I did not know what I was stepping into because I had no friends in startup. I didn't even know what startup was. And at the time, I just called it, he's a small business owner. Didn't even know there was a term called startup. So that was my first experience.
That's so fascinating. I was also the first of all of my friends to work at a startup. And I remember my brother being like, don't take this job. Like, it's so risky. Like, you shouldn't do it. You don't know anything about this company. And I was like, they're trying to pay me like good money. Like, I'm going. Like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And my first startup, I wasn't in HR. We were 20 people. It was like kind of wild, honestly, like very small. Everyone worked on kind of whatever they wanted to. We didn't really have clear lanes. We got there eventually, but it was such a wild experience. And you're right, like nothing prepares you for that first time because you don't know what you're walking into.
But is that better? Is it better that no one warned you? Because otherwise you wouldn't have taken it, right?
I probably would not have. And now I've worked at 4 venture-backed startups. And whenever I say that, I'm like, I can't believe I'm this person who's like chasing the chaos. But there is something so magical about startups and small. And like when you know the people you've worked with for a long time, so like I've been at Work Week almost 4 years this fall. I've like worked with these people for almost 4 years. That's like a substantial amount of time. You like learn, right? You like learn the ins and outs of how the work gets done, the ebbs, the flows, the moods from just looking at someone. So I think startups also give you a chance not only for like your career to grow, but for you to have like kind of intimate relationships with your coworkers, not in 100%. In a weird way. Sorry. I said that in a kind of weird way.
No. I totally get it. Like, when they say, oh, it's not a family. I know it's not a family. Obviously, you don't fire your family members. Yeah. We heard it all. But at the same time, you would not spend this much time with people in corporate. You wouldn't know their behaviors, personalities, dark sides, all of that. It's the nature of startup. You're together for so many hours in a day. You see them more than you see your family or friends. And so you know them inside out, right?
Yeah, it's a very different relationship. I never say like the company is a family thing. I'm like, we're a community. You can opt out. But at the same time, I'm like, I know these people's like personal life. Like some of them I've worked with for so long. I'm like, it is hard, I think, to get to that level of knowing people when you're at a big scale company, which I've been at, and you just like see people in passing. You don't really know their life story. I feel like I know the life story of like a lot of my coworkers today because we're just small. We're just small.
Yeah, 100%.
I kind of love that. What did you think when you were stepping into that first role? Like, what did you think it was going to feel like versus what did it actually feel like?
So I thought we were going to build together and, we're going to scale and we're going to implement all these things. I joined a company that had no HR. So I think it's like essentially the CEO did the HR, which was not much. And when I came in, they didn't even have like electronic employee files. It was like a file folder with like an application in there. I said, what is this? He's like, it's the employee files. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much work we have to do. So I rolled up my sleeves and I'm like, you know what? I'm energized. I have like a lot of autonomy. It's a clean slate. I could just build from scratch. And there was something so exciting about that. So I really enjoyed the building, creating the processes, educating people about why we need to do things a certain way and why there's a diligence process. But no one warned me about like, if you think about founders and some of the executives at companies, they've never gone through leadership development. They've rarely had coaching. Realistically, they built a product or a service, they launched it, they did well, they distributed, they generated revenue, but they weren't operating leaders. No one trained them to be an operating leader. No one trained them to do one-on-ones or to have good communication skills or what you should and shouldn't say from a PR perspective. All of that takes training. And so I came in and I was just shocked by the behaviors of some of these founders. We'll talk about the first CEO though. Like the behaviors were so shocking to me because this CEO wasn't a young dude. He wasn't like in his 20s or 30s. He was older than me. Like this guy was in his 50s and his behaviors were so obtuse. Like I was actually shocked. You would see him like yelling at people in the office. We had an open concept office and he would berate these young junior CX people who are just killing themselves on the phone. He did things that I had never seen before from leadership because I came from public companies. And so I was literally shocked. And I almost thought like, I either need to leave this company and go back to corporate, or I need to figure out how I'm going to do this because this is not the way. And so it was really there in the early years, I was really thinking about like, what do I do? There was no chat GPT at that time to ask, what should I do?
There
right?
wasn't really much to be pulled at. There weren't a lot of people to ask, right?
No.
And were any of your friends doing this? Were any of your friends in HR at startups at the time? It's like,
no, none. I was so green. I didn't even know anyone in the startup industry. And so I was kind of on my own. And I met someone who said, did you ever read the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things? And I said, no, what is that? And they said, you should read it. And I was like, as if I have time to read a book. I'm like killing myself right now, right?
Right. Like, I'll make time for that.
I'm like, okay, how is this book going to help me? But I read it. And I read it, I think, in a weekend. And then afterwards, it's almost like I'm sobbing. Like, this book is like what I'm going through right now. And there was no other way that I could describe it. It was almost like cathartic to read it. And so I used to like hold on to that book like in the office, like it was my Bible. And it gave me comfort because the crazy stuff that I would see in the office was just mind blowing to me. And there was almost a moment where I thought, if it's not mind blowing to me, it's not good because then I'm getting used to it. It means that like I'm morphing into one of them and I cannot be one of them. I must change this. I must make it better. And so I kind of went on a mission to try to scale the leaders, coach the CEO. I became a therapist, an advisor, a coach, an HR leader, all in one. And honestly, like that kills your mojo because you were hired to do something for the company and you're now doing a lot of personal things for somebody just so the company will survive. So that was really hard.
It is shocking. So I've worked with 2 sets of first-time founders, 2 sets of second-time founders. Second-time founders are interesting because like hopefully they've done the wrong thing the first time. Like that's something that Jim Van de Heye at Axios used to say a lot. Like with their first company, they made mistakes. They didn't want to make the same mistakes at Axios, so they did things differently. But when you're working with first-time founders or people who have just been a lifelong entrepreneur, it's a whole different game. Like, and I wrote about this in a newsletter and a lot of people said it was very helpful. Like their identity is so intertwined with the identity of the company that when you try to like change things, it's almost like it's a reflection of them. So they're like, oh my God, you're trying to change me. Like, I don't want to be changed. This is my company, how I run it. So it really is, I think, just so shocking. But it's the other part of it is like, it's also really fun. Like if you get to work with like good people, because like we've all had our fair share of working with like not great people who are not receptive to anything you want to do. But if you have the chance to work with like good people as you're navigating a startup, it really feels like the most fun you could have, especially if you're like curious and you like problems and you don't want to be bored at work. Like I also was bored in corporate. So startups to me are like, I don't think I could ever go back to corporate, honestly, because I'm like, what would I do all day? I would do one job. What?
For all the hard things that you do at a startup, it's still worth it because the alternative is you go back to corporate and corporate again. Well, maybe it's made for some people. Like I've known people who went to startup and went back to corporate and they thrived, but it's not made for others. And it certainly wasn't made for me or you. I think We want to build. I think ambiguity is something that you welcome. And there's a good side to startups that some people don't see. I mean, there's bad sides too. It's depends on the person, I think. And going back to the founder thing, I think that the most important relationship at a company is the founder and the CPO. Like, I think it is so important because the CPO isn't doing tangible things like, oh, generating revenue or building the product or, tinkering with the technology. You're doing a lot of things that are outside of the job description. When all else fails and you don't know what to throw something at, you send it to HR. That's just a given. When COVID happened, it was like suddenly you're the health nurse and you are, it's all this stuff that goes to HR. If you don't have a good partnership and like a really good relationship with the founder, it will never work. It will never work. Founder cannot hire you just because you have a great resume, but you both don't get along personality wise. It will never work. And so I've known friends who reported into CEOs that they didn't get along with, and the relationship was so toxic, it was so tainted from the very beginning that it obviously affects the work and how you build the company, right?
For sure. I mean, I reported to a CEO who I just think we had such different personalities. And I think like that was part of the reason why our relationship struggled so much. But my current CEO and I are very similar, almost to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, he and I are going to go dream about this thing, but I also have to stop dreaming and help keep us on the same page and like write the action items and do the next steps, right? He and I are like similar in a way where like we like a lot of the same things. We have a lot of the same like cultural references. We like each other as people. It's been like night and day to go from a CEO who I just didn't vibe with. Like truly, I do think at that level, you want the vibes to be good. Like you can be super successful at this job. You can be like the best CPO, but if you don't have that relationship with the CEO, good luck.
Yeah.
It's never going to work.
It's doomed from the beginning.
Yeah. And I felt that way in my interview with Adam, my current CEO, like instantly from our interview, I was like, oh, I like this guy. Like I like him and I think we could work well together. And I made a point to be like, I need to know more about your working style so that I can tell you more about my working style because I'm trying to find a zone of compatibility because I've been in the incompatible and that, Christine, was like the worst experience of my life. And now like one of my close friends works with the CEO and they are very similar and they work really well together. And every single time I'm always like, he and I were just too different. You and him are like perfect for each other. And it's like very clear. And I think there's something like humbling about it. But if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking about like, I want a new job, I want a new CPO job, I just highly encourage that you find a CEO that you can vibe with. Otherwise, like this job becomes, I mean, I said it, impossible.
It's impossible. Like I've gone into interviews where the CEO has reached out to me and said, hey, like I really want to work with you. And I've gone on a few calls or interviews with these people. And I knew in like 20 minutes, it's not going to work out. I can tell we're completely different. Maybe they liked a persona that they saw of me on LinkedIn, or I wrote an article that really resonated with them. But when I talked to them, I could tell we're on different page, like, but completely different page. And, this whole thing about opposites attract, it's bullshit. Like you're going to be working in the same company, building something, and you're going to have opposite feelings about how you're going to build. It doesn't work out. You've got to be aligned. It has to be a partnership. And so in those instances, when I found out that I can tell this isn't going to work, I will end the recruitment process. I will say, you know what? I'm going to drop out. I just don't think that this is the right opportunity for me. And they'll feel the same way because you can tell, like you could even see it in their eyes. We're like, oh, we are completely incompatible, right?
I love that. I also am just like, I can tell so quickly if it's going to work or not. I think you and I have like particular personalities, not particular in a bad way, but like, I do not want to be somewhere where I can't challenge the CEO. So if your reaction to conflict is you're going to avoid it and you don't want to be direct, I cannot work with you because those are very specifically my style. It's funny because Adam, my CEO now, and I talk about how we have similar conflict styles where we'll just go at each other. and like other people in the room will be like silent, and he and I will be like batting back and forth. And then we'll be like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And we just like resolve it quickly. And I appreciate that so much because I
Yes.
would rather the resolution than let something settle and then like fester. And then suddenly I'm in a toxic environment because
Yeah.
someone doesn't like the way I challenged them on an idea.
That's exactly it. If you can't challenge them the way they would challenge you, or to give the honest feedback so that they can get better,
Yeah.
it's not going to work out. And I've seen some people who are in relationships like where they're CEO and themselves, they're very formal. They don't
Mm.
rock the boat. It's a very like artificial relationship. And the reality is it's going to come to a head one day because you're holding in a lot of things. It's like a volcano. It's going to explode one day, right? And
Yeah.
I just don't want that. When I meet with founders that want to work with me, like I always ask one question, and I always say like, what was the hardest day of your job? Tell me about the day that brought you to your knees and made you not want to be a CEO anymore. And they all like, and they have a story because every CEO knows what that day was. And the reason why I ask that is I know that it's going to be about a people problem. It's never like, oh, the product had this bug and we couldn't fix it, or we lost a customer. No, it's always something that mentally like killed them because it was some sort of people issue. And I want to know like, what got you to your knees? What was the issue? How terrible was it? And then afterwards, they always ask, so why did you ask that question? And I said, oh, because I wanted to see, number one, if it was a people issue. It usually is. It's never not a people issue. And number two, I wanted to see what I would have done if I could have helped you fix that. And they go, could you have? And I'm like, 100%. And then it's like, oh, then we're aligned. Yeah, game on, right? And it's interesting because like when they tell that story, you see the emotion in their eyes. You see how it affected them. Like I had one CEO who said, I just didn't want to be CEO of this company anymore. I wanted to pack up and just end it today. Like that was really hard. And it was a people issue.
Yeah. That's such a good question. I'm writing that down because I am going to start asking people that, because that also, if they're able to be vulnerable with you, if you think about the relationship between a CPO and a CEO or a founder, you want that vulnerability and that intimacy to like like you want them to share things with you, because you're going to do your job better if you can understand and anticipate their moves and their feelings about something. Now, like with 99.9% certainty, I know how something will make my CEO feel. And we're like 4 years in. So like we've learned a lot about each other by year 4. But like now I know, okay, this is something that's going to irritate him. Okay, this is something he's going to want to have an opinion on. Okay, he does not care about this. He said it before, move on. I think like that level that could have only gotten there because we've shared a lot with each other. And like you have to be willing to do that. And I've worked with CEOs who are not willing to do that, who are like, we are professionals. You don't need to know anything about me. And I'm like, then how can we have a real relationship with one another? If you want to draw the line at professional, like, sure, there are things I don't need to know about your life, but I know my CEO's kids' names. I've met his wife. Like, I send them gifts, like that type of stuff. I think just it builds something more than just a transactional relationship.
Yeah, transactional. I'm allergic to that. Like we
Yeah.
spend too much time at work to be transactional or artificial. For me, because you're dealing with so many sensitive things in HR, that it naturally makes you open up. And the CEOs and founders that I've worked with, like they've told me personal things that they've gone through. They told me about what their therapist told them. They told me about, mental health challenges they had growing up, or disabilities that they had that affects how they make decisions. I think that's all like something I respect so much, because I will equally be as honest, like, hey, sometimes, I get really frustrated and I lose my temper and I got to manage my self-regulation because sometimes I get too passionate about something. But when I get like that, you just have to like slap me, like, Christine, you're getting weird again. Like, I need to have that kind of relationship, because I do believe that a CPO CEO relationship is just is as strong as a co-founder relationship, because your CEO is going to tell you about the hardest things that's happening in the company, and nobody else can help him fix that except you, the CPO, because it's so confidential. It involves people. It involves personal feelings. Nobody else can really manage that except for HR because you've been doing it for so many years. And so it does get into a personal space. It's not going to be professional and artificial. It just can't be.
I don't believe that at all. I
Mhm.
can't, I also don't want that relationship. I really
I
don't. I
know.
have found that like when it's transactional and surface level, I get really frustrated because I'm
Same.
like, I don't want to have to pull things out of you. If I have to
Yes.
pull it out of you to uncover what the problem is, I feel like I'm wasting my time when I could be solving the problem.
You know what it is? A startup, we are against time every single day. Okay. So if we have to like take time to get the message right and kind of
Yep.
draw it out of them in a few weeks and hopefully the message gets across, there's no time for that. We need
No.
to like build and move fast. Every day time is against us, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. There's one note I want to touch on because we've talked a lot about the CEO and the CPO relationship at startups. Have you ever worked at a startup where you also kind of reported to the board or like had to talk to the board about stuff? I'm so fascinated by this because I just posted on LinkedIn about how somebody crafted some thrilling thought leadership about how HR should report to the CFO so they can learn to speak the language of the business. And then I made a post and I was like, first of all, no, like there's no, in no reality could you tell me my reporting line is the CFO and I accept the job. I am reporting to the CEO and that is it. And somebody was like, I don't even think HR should report to the CEO. HR should report to the board. And I'm like, ooh, T, how would that actually work? But I mean, like I've also had to say things to the board and work closely with them. But like, how have you experienced that? Because I think it's so interesting and not a lot of people have that experience.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the experience of when I reported to the first board at that startup. So that was the first board that I reported to. And the reason why I reported to them is when I got hired, I was a manager, but then I quickly moved up to director and VP, like really, really quickly. And it was endorsed by the board. So the board was something that I had never experienced before and not what I had imagined. The advice I got from people in my network was, you got to be data driven and you got to give the numbers because that's all they care about is the numbers. And I'm like, all right, I got the metrics, I got the numbers. But what I realized was the board doesn't want to just see static numbers. That's like an accountant just giving you numbers. Like you got to tell a story. You've got to really take the data and then say, what is this telling us? And so I am someone who, if I'm working closely with somebody, I open up and I share what's really going on in a very like nonchalant, very matter of fact way. And the board that I reported to was private equity and they're there for the long haul. And yeah, they were very like intense, but at the same time, it was my first experience and they were so supportive. Like what they told me was, you know what? This is your first time reporting into a board. It's your first startup, but you're doing an amazing job, Christine. Like it's like you were made for this. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, whatever you need, like just tell us what you need. Like we're here to support you. And so I remember the first time I had to do a reduction in force. I was like, oh my God, like I don't even know where to start. Like how do I do this? Like, and I'm kind of doing it on my own because like I had a really small team, so it was really me kind of planning it out. And our board member said, oh, we're going to get the COO of one of our companies in Boston to come fly out to meet with you. And I said, really, for what? Because he's going to show you how to do it. He's going to guide you. He's going to be like your mentor. He's done this before. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like all nervous going, I got to meet this COO. Like I better be all ready for the meeting. He was like the nicest guy I've ever met. He was very like, sort of like a mentor. And he explained everything to me. He shared his templates. He gave me really good advice about like, you're going to feel like shit doing this. But you know what? The better you do it, the better you communicate, the more transparent you are, the more receptive people will be for a very difficult situation. And he taught me, like, he was just so kind in how he did that. So that's like the board that I reported to. They were so supportive. I worked hard. I worked like 100 hours a week. My stupid mistake. But they were so supportive. They flew me out to meet some of the best executives of their portfolio companies. They would come fly in from LA to meet me all the time. And I'm on the East Coast, they're on the West. Like it's a hard flight. But it was how much they valued me. And what I learned from that experience that took me to many future boards is build a relationship with your board. It's a separate relationship outside of your CEO, and you're not betraying your CEO. You're being honest as a leader. and sharing like, here's why we're seeing all this turnover at the executive level. Here's what's going on inside the company. Or here's why we're getting such bad Glassdoor reviews. I'll tell you what happened. Like, you've got to explain the story. You can't just go, well, there's the data. And they're like, what's going on? You got to be honest and forthright. And the CEOs and founders that I work with understood that. They also had the similar type of relationship with their board. And that taught me very early on that, like, every relationship is the same. No one wants to be transactional. No one just wants to see data and metrics. You've got to build that relationship. And they respect me so much that some of the board members I've known, they said, I got to bring you into my other companies. Like, I want you to be part of this portfolio forever. And it's been with every board that I've worked with.
That's so impressive.
All of us want to know what makes people work at work. Like, how will they handle feedback or make decisions or work with the team without causing chaos? The Predictive Index uses behavioral assessments to show you how people actually think and work, so you're not guessing and hoping for the best. Maybe Mike needs structure to thrive, or Margot desires more collaboration. When you understand your people, work actually works. Take the behavioral assessment today at try.predictiveindex.com and finally get some real answers.
I feel like I've had exposure to boards and I've had to like report in and say things, but I just feel like I haven't built that depth of experience you have with them. Maybe in a next life I will, because the boards have been like so small, or either if they're really big and they don't need to hear from HR. They're like, oh, things are going fine. Like, we would need to hear about the business instead. And I always want to be like, but the business is the people. Like,
you know what? The business is people, and that's why the HR person, the CPO, has to report to the CEO. If the CPO does not report to the CEO, it means that your employees, which is the biggest expense at your company, it's payroll, are not that important. It means they are not that important. But guess what? Your people are building the product, getting the customers, generating the revenue, creating the strategy. You better care about your people. And I'm not saying it in a fluffy HR way, but the CPO role is so critical to the success of the business. People just poo-poo it as if like we just do pizza parties all day. That is not true. That is not true. I think that it's critical that the HR leader needs to have FaceTime with the board. I expect that if I'm going to be recruited into a company, I expect the founder or CEO to say, okay, when do you want to meet the board? Like, that has to be part of the conversation. And I was at a dinner once, a roundtable, where we were talking about boards with a bunch of CPOs. And we went around the room and we said, like, how much time do you get with the board? Some said, I get none, but I create the deck. Other people said, oh, I get time, but I'm the last person speaking, so I usually run out of time. I might have like 5 minutes. And when they got to me, they said, well, what about you, Christine? Like, how do you work with the board? I said, oh, I'm the first person to present. And they're like, why are you the first? And I said, because our board said every meeting starts with talking about the people and the culture, because that is what makes a company. I loved that board so much. And I didn't build the board deck. I'm sorry. That was our CFO. I don't do that. So I'm not the admin person here.
But not for me. That's not for me either. I'm not a deck builder. My CEO loves making decks though. So
Yours are great.
It works in my favor. Like, he loves the decks. He's like, I'll make the deck. I'm like, thank fuck. Because like, I'm not a deck person. I did not work in consulting. I do not vibe with the deck.
I hate the decks.
I hate the decks.
I went first, and then they said, then we open it up and we go through each vertical, then we'll go to sales, then we'll go to finance. But it was really interesting because not only was I at every board meeting, and not only did I kick off the board meeting, but after the board meeting is the real meeting, where you go back to meet the board with the CEO. And now it's just the small huddle. That's the actual meeting. It's not actually the board meeting. And so I kind of cautioned everyone at the table, like, if you're not getting any FaceTime with the board, or you're just made to create the deck, like, there's a serious misalignment, because it kind of shows like the disvalue of HR. I remember my mentor told me years ago, she worked in a CPO role in a very large bank. And she said, my only advice to you in the future is that no matter what job you take, the CEO must respect the role of HR. If the CEO doesn't respect it, nobody in the company or the board will respect HR. And I never forgot that. That was like, I don't know, 30 years ago, but I never forgot it.
I want to be you when I grow up, or I'm already a grown up. I just want to be you now. So
We
no,
just
that's
need
like
to be in the same city.
I just think, yeah, can you please come to DC, please? I just really,
No,
like, that's what
I'm
we're
working
doing.
on it.
We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it happen this
Yeah.
year. But it is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so true. Like there are a lot of CPOs that get strong armed out of that discussion. And
Yeah.
it's like, don't you want to hear from the person who has probably the closest touch, like pulse point on the people, especially in like this AI forward future, whatever AI future we're going to live in, like the people figuring out what the people are doing, the person directly responsible is going to be like a massive, like people used to be like 10x engineer. I'm like, your HR person can be a 20x person. You just need to give them the respect they deserve and let them work with the people they're supposed to work with.
Your CPO knows the CEO better than anyone else, and your CPO knows the executive team better than anybody else. So this valuable knowledge, they understand the people that are building the company, that are leading the teams, but you have no FaceTime with that person. What complete shame, right?
It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Something I want to talk about, like part two, the second half of this episode. I don't know why I said part two as if there's like a part two time, but the second half of this episode, you said you worked 100 hours a week at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talk to me about, like, let's talk about burnout. When did you first notice, wait a minute, something is not right? I'm not doing well. This is not sustainable. When did you first realize that?
Yeah. So because it was my first startup experience, what I realized was, wow, we've got to do a lot of things with a small team. And you know what? You're taught to, like, contribute to the team. If you're passionate about what you do and you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. Bullshit. I was doing a lot of work. Okay. You can love your job, but there's a lot of shitty stuff that you have to do in your job, right? There's a lot of grunt work that you have to do, and that compounds. So when you're doing all these hard things and you're adding the hours and you're working weekends and evenings and you're flying out on planes and working while you're jet lagged, it all adds up. And so one day I was like, how many hours am I actually working? So I started calculating on a napkin, and I realized, holy mother of God, I'm working 100 hours a week. I see my kids for my kids were young then too. And I would see them for like an hour, if even. I never picked them up from school. I picked up my daughter once from school, and some kid ran up to her and said, hey, who's that lady? She said, that's my mom. And the kid went, you have a mom? And I was just like, hide the tears.
Yeah, mom has a job. That's really hard at a startup.
Yeah, I'm working really hard for you, okay? But I was working 100 hours a week. I was trying to be the team player. I heard all the stupid stuff that you heard about, like, I'll sleep when I die, all the stupid stuff. And because it was my first startup, you want to prove that you can do it. You want to prove you have the energy, the desire. You're a team player. You will roll up your sleeves. You'll wear 4 different hats. And I mean, the CEO encouraged it as much as the board. But the reality was, when I looked at all the hours that I did and all the stuff that I did, that just was a complete waste of my time, because realistically, you could have hired someone at $60,000 salary who could have done all of this better. But you're getting an executive to do everything from strategy to grunt work to booking meetings to just doing everything. And it burned the hell out of me. And I started seeing physical issues. Like, first it was a physical. It's like, oh, my hair's falling out. And then I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of hair falling out. But then one day I was walking up the stairs and my husband said, do you have a bald spot back there? Because he was at the bottom of the stairs. And I said, what did you just say? He said,
oh my God.
You look like you have a bald spot on the back of your head. And when I put a mirror up, there was indeed a huge bald spot. And I was like, I need to get to a doctor right away. And they're like, oh, it looks like, are you going through some stress or something? Because your hair's falling out. You need to get some steroid shots. And I'm like, give it to me now.
Yeah,
so there was that. Yeah, right in the spot. Give me a double shot.
Yeah.
I started losing weight. So I'm like, oh, this is kind of great. All my old clothes are fitting again, but you're really losing weight. Like, I was the same weight as I was when I was in grade 9. Like, it was really embarrassing. Okay. So I was losing a lot of weight. Then you start seeing your mood. And I realized I was like not very good at self-regulating on stressful days. But then I was also like depressed. Like, I was depressed because you're working so hard. You see no light at the end of the tunnel. The the great job that you do gets rewarded with more work. Everyone says, no, we can't give it to Johnny. We can't give it to Susie. You're so good at it. You got to do it. You've got that magic touch. And you're like, oh, my reward is more work. So you keep taking it on. And at the end of the day, you realize that like, this is not sustainable. And it doesn't matter if you're a superhuman, you're taking all your vitamins, you're running all day and you're on a super diet, like you are not going to survive this. Humans weren't made to, I mean, a computer can't even stay on 24 hours. A car can't even keep its engine on for that long. I started to see health damages, and that was my sign at the end that you're going to kill yourself.
Yeah, it is. During COVID, I had to like go to 3 different doctors because my arms were going numb from like typing so much. And every doctor was like, should you quit your job? Like literally every doctor was like, I think you should quit your job. And I'm like, I'm working at a startup. It is COVID. Like I do not have time for this. Like, please stop. I'm out here telling people how to wash their hands. Like I don't got time for this right now. Like, and every doctor is like, what do you do for like, I think it's wild that every doctor also asks you now, like, what do you do for work? It's like on all your patients, whatever. And I'm like, they're looking for something that's causing the stress. Cause like the burnout can be so bad that like you don't even recognize yourself at the end of the day.
That's the first question that my doctor checkup always asks. Are you still at that startup? Oh, you're at a new startup. It's going to be even more stressful now because you're new, right?
Yeah. Every time I've had multiple doctors be like, should you quit your job? And I'm like, I have bills I have to pay. So like, no, like,
yeah,
I kind of need this job and I like it.
There could be joy in what you do if it wasn't that like you're doing it for 24/7. You couldn't even enjoy ice cream if you were eating it 24/7, right?
No.
So
I'd be sick. But like, I do feel like startup culture it rewards that like overwork and the behavior to that leads to burnout. Like, why do you think that is? Like, I hate it. I'm like, first of all, this is not my company. Like, I love wanting to work here, but like, I should not kill myself for something that's not even mine at the end of the day. Why do you think
I think it's certain personalities. I think certain people they have strong discipline, strong sense of ownership. They may even have high stamina, okay? And they're so reliable, they're so responsible that you become that right hand. And consistently, you're the go-to person. You're the person that everyone calls on. You're the cleaner, the fixer, the person who, oh, Christine can fix this. Oh, Heba will know what to do in 5 seconds. But of course you can, because you've done so much of this and there's pattern recognition and you've gained experience and you have good intuition. But that doesn't mean that it has to be you all the time, because I always say, the reason why I loved my first few startups was because I was only qualified for it about 60%. That 40% was stuff I had never done before, and someone had to test me out to see if I can actually do it. And because it was also a novelty to me, I was like, oh my God, they're going to give me this project. I've never done it before. They trust me. I have huge accountability. The scope is amazing. So you're going all in and you prove that you can do it. The problem with, I think, CEOs and some boards is that they've had a lot of disappointments. They've hired people who had lofty titles and job descriptions and great LinkedIn profiles and had great logos on their resume, but then they come in and then they just can't do the work the way they want them to. And so when they find someone that can do it, they keep going back to that person over and over, the reliable person, the person they know who's going to give 110%. But if you're that person, what are you getting out of it? Because you're doing the same old work that you're doing over and over. And you're like, there were times where I'm doing coaching for junior managers. And I'm like, so you want me to coach a junior manager, senior manager, executives, and the CEO, sometimes even the board. But it's like, I got to do it all. Should that really be the case? Like, there has to be some way to scale things. And if you're not the person being scaled, you're just adding on your responsibilities and then you end up working 100 hours a week.
Well, that's why I'm kind of excited about AI. Like I say kind of because I'm always like worried about the environment and water and bias and all that stuff. But I'm excited about AI because I'm like, I don't need to be the person who answers every single question. I've never needed to be that person. I've never felt fulfillment from answering an HR question. Honestly, I've been like, my documentation must suck if people keep asking the same question over and over again, right? So I'm like, that's what I'm excited about for AI. Because I think, it could do part of the things that I don't need to be spending my time doing. But it does feel like since COVID, the HR job has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't know if people have realized how truly massive and multidisciplinary this job is, where they like laugh about HR being like the least competent of the executives. And I'm like, are you joking?
On top of that, you have to understand what great looks like. So you have to understand the job, the scope, and the performance. And so you in the business. And it's funny that you mentioned COVID because I was on a virtual, like, I guess it's like a virtual workshop during COVID. The majority of people in that workshop were all CPOs, but from very, very big companies, big tech. Like these people are like famous in their own right. And I was like, wow, I'm in a room full of them. This is great. There's only like 10 of us. Loved it. But it was very, very vulnerable and authentic. And every single person on that call that you see them on LinkedIn and they're doing all these, they probably spoke at Transform. Okay. All of these people, they all said, I only have it in me to stay at a company for 2, maybe 3 years. And then I have to take time off and I got to take a year off because they said it's extremely overwhelming. There's no end to the work that you have to do. The scope of HR means everything that other leaders don't do, toss it over to HR. They said there's so much mental, emotional stress. You take on the stress of the CEO, all the executives, all the employees. And they said like these people look genuinely sad, but they were people that have beautiful profiles. And I was shocked to hear all of this. And they were like, yeah, I'm currently at blah, blah company. I've been there for 2 years. I'm getting ready to probably call it a day in about 6 months. So I got to start looking for my replacement. And we're like, does your CEO know this? And they're like, absolutely not. They're like, I can't tell them. They're going to try to convince me to stay, but I got to find my future, person to take my seat because I can't do this for too long. It'll literally take the life out of me.
It'll destroy me. I get that question a lot. People are like, how do you have the stamina to like be the CPO and a content creator and do all the things that you do? And I just have to be like, listen, I don't have kids. I spend my time with my partner, my friends, and my family. Like that's where I'm spending my time. I don't have other responsibilities. I don't have animals. Like I've sacrificed a lot to be able to do both of these jobs. I really have. But like some days I like feel the exhaustion so deep in my bones that I'm like, I just don't know if anyone else understands this the way that HR does. Like it does feel like out of every executive at every company, like yes, your sales leader is held to like high lofty goals. I still feel like HR carries the brunt and the emotional labor of the entire organization at a level that I don't think anyone understands.
I'll tell you why. Because none of your executive peers have the same pressure that you do. And I'm not talking like, I got to generate revenue pressure or I got to get that product out. I'm talking about the performance of all your peers who are executives. So when the CEO comes to you and says, you know what? The CFO, what is going on? Like they're totally missing all the things that they need to do. You've got to figure it out. You've got to have the conversation with that CFO. They are your peer, they're your friend, but at the same time, you got to get them to perform or else they won't be here anymore. So you hold that inside, it's your responsibility, and multiply that with every executive in the company. And some other people might say foolishly, oh, that's great. Like you're protected. You just have to manage the performance of all the other executives. No, that's a burden. That is a burden when they are your peers. You've worked with them for many years. They've helped you build the company, but you now see them struggling. And maybe the board or the CEO is coming to you and going, Heba, like we got to do something. Like what's the plan? You got to figure it out and be objective, right?
Yeah. And you're like, I don't want to have this conversation today. Every time like, I have to like mentally prepare myself for this. I'm like, okay, let's have this really serious conversation. I'm ready. It's I don't know. It's like a level that I just don't think a lot of people really get. And I'm glad that we're able to like have this conversation, and you've been on all sides of it, right? You've been an HR exec, an operator, a builder, a founder. You've done it all. So like you have seen all of these different personalities and personas and know what a burden it still is to be the HR leader who gets shit on by like everyone in the world and then is the only person behind the scenes trying to make the right thing happen and then gets no credit for it. That's the wildest part. I'm like, don't go into this job if you want someone to thank you for the things that you do, because it is the most thankless job on earth.
That's the first thing I heard when I got into HR. People said, it's a thankless job, right? I'm like, what do you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know
Well,
exactly what they mean, right?
no
No
one's
one
perfect.
thanks you for
No one
doing a
thinks.
good job. No one thanks you that you made payroll. No one thanks you that, you saved the day. But if something goes wrong, like the wrong cereal flavors in the kitchen,
Who
you're
gets
to
blamed?
blame.
Exactly. It's sick. Okay, but with 5 to 9 society, you are building something that's like very fundamentally different, really about people having a life outside of work. Like, yes, we've talked about work and startups and all the things we've learned today, but like, how did that come to be? Like, how much of it was personal that you like went through the startup journey and you were like, life is way better to be lived than not to work. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge part of what was missing in my personal life. So, when I was going through a lot of stress and working at these startups for the past 10 years, what
Yeah.
was a lifesaver for me was my time outside of work. If I did not have a peer community or people that I could share my woes with, I probably wouldn't be here today. I'd probably be like, jumping off a bridge or something. It was literally like the hardest time of my life in my career. And so I built up a great peer community. It was intimate, people I can trust. I could speak the truth and get their advice. Someone had gone through something that I'm going through now and could give me the advice. But there's a lot of people that don't have that. And when you think about your time outside of work, for me, it wasn't 5 to 9. It was probably at midnight to 6 a.m. But for most people, when they get off work, it's your time to figure out, like, what do you want to do with that time? Do you want to network and have a peer community? Do you want to create a side hustle and build a business? Do you want to advise so that you're an advisor to many other companies, which gives you joy and allows you to go back and do your grunt work in your day job? There's like so many reasons. And I just don't think we're heading into the future where there won't be full-time jobs anymore. Like, I truly do believe that. It's hard for me to believe that someone's going to have a job for 40 hours a week and this is the only way they make their income. I truly believe that there is going to be this gig economy. People are going to be doing many different things and diversifying their revenue streams. And this is kind of an outlet where people can talk with peers. We have several different tiers. We have like a founders tier where founders can talk about founder challenges that you can't talk about with other executives. We have an operator tier where operators who are the loneliest job out there outside of CEOs, they don't have a community where they can talk about things openly. They just have to have all the answers when they go to work. And people look up to them and they're like, oh, yeah, Christine's here to save the day. But I need my people at the end of the day to say, like, help me. I'm kind of like depleted. And there are people trying to build a business and they either, whether they're a consultant, an advisor, or a solopreneur, like they also need help. And so we have like what I call the consigliere tier, which is like that tier where they're trying to build a business. And we just had a dinner last night with that tier where we talked about how do you generate revenue? How do you get new clients? How do you start becoming a consultant when no one knows who you are and they identify you through the companies that you worked at, but no one knows you as the consultant. So we went through like a lot of exercises and sharing experiences, and everybody walks out feeling so much lighter because you can't talk about this with anyone else. And so I think 5 to 9 society kind of appeases the loneliness that some of us feel when we're up at night and trying to figure things out. And I think community is the next big thing. It's the moat for every organization. When you have your community of people, you can conquer the world. You can do anything.
Yeah. I mean, we also have like safe space all for HR people to figure things out. And that's like the number one thing we've heard from people who join safe space is like, I finally have someone to talk to about all my problems and like a group of 10,000 plus people I can ask a question to and get an answer quickly. And I think that like, I don't know, we're like the loneliest we've ever been as a society. Of course we need each other. And I think there's something so beautiful and like leaning on one another and the expertise that somebody else has in a world that's like, fully becoming about AI and you could just ask AI. I'm like, but what if I want to ask a human? What if I want to talk to a person who's actually done this, who's felt the same way I have felt about it? What if I want that? I don't want to argue with AI. I might want to argue with you, but I don't really want to argue with AI, right? Like it's something so weird that we're like increasingly lonely as a society. And then at the same time, we watch these AI tools ramp up that everyone is talking to as if they're friends, loved ones. Like, I'm like, what are we doing? We need to be out in the world. We need to be out in the world talking to each other because that's how you learn.
Yeah, I'd rather talk to a flawed human being than AI, which gives me the perfect answers. But like, I mean, realistically, AI is like learning and scraping from what's already out there. I'd rather learn from a human being who can just tell me like their thought process and what they learned from it. And I could look at their experience and say, I resonate with that. I don't want to resonate with AI. I just want them to answer my questions.
I also don't want to resonate with AI.
I want to resonate with human beings. And you're right. I think we are going through a loneliness epidemic. And I think that's why a huge part of 5 to 9 is to have in real life dinners. Like that's a huge part of the membership, is to sit at a table, 12 people, intimate, one table, break bread together, have a drink, and talk about your hardest challenges and what did each of you do to get past that. And you walk away feeling like, wow, I found my people, right?
Yeah. That's what we're all just looking for one another, honestly. Like I
Yeah.
kept talking about Transform, like Transform's theme was AI. And I was like, this ain't the theme for me. The theme for me is connection. Like
Yeah.
I am connecting with people and building community every day. Like sure, you can teach me about AI, but I would much rather talk to these human beings who are also in the thick of the shit with me. I love to end episodes on pieces of advice. So for someone who's about to take their first executive role at a startup, what do they need to know potentially that the offer letter would never tell them?
Yeah, so everyone's going to send you a basic offer letter and it's a template and there's going to be a number on it with vacation days and whatever. What I would say is each individual should think about what's important to them. So for some people, it might be, I need a, salary that's at this range. Other people might say, don't care that much about the salary. I want the equity. That's why I'm joining early stage. Someone else might say, look, I care about flexibility. I've got 2 young kids at home. I've got to get home by 3:00, but I'll get back on the computer at 8:00 p.m. when the kids are to bed. Like if those things, whatever it is, are important to you, make sure you talk about it up front when you're getting your offer, because I can guarantee you when you join a startup, you're going to work more than 40 hours a week. You are going to work in the evenings. You are going to do work on the weekends. It is going to creep into your personal life and into your family life. And it's not just you joining the startup. Your husband, your spouse, your children are joining the startup as well. It is going to affect their life as well. So take a really good look at your offer letter. Ask for what's really important. What is that one thing that's a non-negotiable? I don't care if you need a nanny. Like ask for it, because the worst thing is for you to not ask and then afterwards try to negotiate it. And it's really hard later on. Like if it's really important to you now, ask for it now. And may I hope you receive it.
Same. I always say ask for all the things you want to ask for, because the second you start, they got you locked in. And it is really hard to ask for things after the fact, as I have learned several times. For people, this is now becoming my recurring bit. For people who want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, best way is probably LinkedIn. I respond to anyone who reaches out. I don't have any unread messages. I'm one of those 0 message kind of inboxes.
Not I. I am working on that. That's a vibe I'm trying to cultivate for 2026. My inbox is like 5,026 unread emails. And I'm like, I'm not reading any of them.
That would give me anxiety.
I'm actually trying to build an agent or something in Claude Cowork so it can like scrape my email and tell me all the important emails I need to respond to, so then I could just go respond to those and not
share that with me, please.
Yeah. I need to be inbox 0. It's aspirational for me. I'll get there someday. Yeah. I just want to say a huge thank you for joining me, sharing your expertise. You've always been like so warm, welcoming, and helpful, even when I have questions about things. And I'm just so grateful you came on the pod. I envision you coming back in a future episode too and talking more about like, how do we get outside of work and like experience the world and think about us in the world too? Because I think what you're building with 5 to 9 Society is super impactful, and people need each other so much right now.
Thank you so much. I would love to come back. This was so enjoyable. Anytime.
Thanks for tuning in. Keep up with all the latest HR resources by subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen. And if you love I Hate It Here, tell an HR friend. I'll see you next time.